Good morning, students. Today we are going to continue with force and pressure. Last class we discussed that force can change the state of motion. Force can increase speed, decrease speed, stop something, start to move something. To this class we'll try and discuss force can also change the shape of an object. We'll take some examples. Some examples are, you take a lump of dough, andre ittu, kalsiro ittu tagondo. If you press our hand, you can see by applying force, we can change the shape of it, of the dough. If a spring is fixed to the side of the vehicle, by sitting on the seat, we can change. A rubber suspended from the hook and nail fixed on a wall, by hanging weight or by pulling its free end. By pulling a rubber band, we can pull and stretch a rubber band by applying force. Can pull and stretch a rubber band by applying force on it. By applying force. A plastic or metal scale placed between two bricks. Stick or metal scale placed between two bricks by putting weight at the center of the scale. We conclude that by all these activities, a plastic or a metal scale can be placed in two bricks. By putting weight at the center, we can make the scale to bend. What we conclude from the observations which I told now, we can conclude that when you apply force on an inflated balloon by pressing it between your palms, shape of a ball though, we come to a conclusion that force on an object may change its shape. Force on an object may change its shape. What are the actions of force? Force can make an object to move from rest, may change the speed of an object if it is moving, may change the direction of motion of an object, may change about shape of an object, may cause some or all of these effects. Once again, I'll tell the effects of force. The force can make an object to move from rest, may change the speed of an object if it is moving, may change the direction of motion, may bring about change in the shape of an object, may cause all effects together. Importance of force. While a force may cause one or more of these effects, it is important to remember that none of these actions can take place without the action of force. It is important to remember that none of these actions can take place without the action of a force. Thus, an object cannot move by itself. It cannot change the speed by itself. It cannot change the direction by itself. Its shape by itself. It cannot change its shape by itself. Next, we will learn the types of force. First type of force is a contact force. In contact, muscular force. Can we push or lift a book by lying the table without touching it? Can you lift a bucket of water without holding it? Generally, to apply force on an object, your body has to be in contact with the object. The contact may also be with the help of stick or a piece of rope. When we push an object like school bag or lift bucket of water, where does the force come from? This force is caused by the action of muscles in our body. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as muscular force. We cannot lift a book on a table without touching it. We cannot lift a bucket of water without holding it. Generally, to apply a force on an object, your body has to be in contact with the object. The contact may also be with the help of a stick or a piece of rope. When we push an object like a school bag or lift a bucket of water, the force comes from action of muscles in the body. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as muscular force. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is called as muscular force. Resulting is called muscular force. Is muscular force. Animals also make use of muscular force to carry out their physical activities and other tasks. Animals like bullocks, horses, donkey, and camel are used to perform various tasks for us. Today we learned two kinds of forces. One is contact force. Contact force means one we have to come in contact with another body to apply the force. That is muscular force is the best contact force. Animals also make use of muscular force to carry out their physical activities and other tasks. Animals like bullocks, horses, donkeys are used to perform various tasks for us. In performing these tasks, they use muscular force. Since muscular force can be applied only when it is contact with the object, it is also called contact. Since muscular force can be applied only when it is in contact with an object, it is also called contact force. Muscular force is also a contact force. Next we will discuss another contact force called as frictional force. We recall some of the experience, like in the first chapter, first only I told a ball going around the ground gradually slows down and finally comes to rest. When we stop pedaling a bicycle, it gradually slows down and finally comes to a stop. A car or a scooter also comes to the rest once engine is stopped. Similarly, a boat comes to rest if we stop rowing it. Can you add some more such experiences? We can do anything. We cannot walk on a sand. Cannot walk on a sand. A car or a scooter also comes to rest once an engine is switched off. Similarly, a boat comes to rest, stop rowing it. If you observe all these situations, it appears as if no force is appearing to be acting on objects, yet their speed gradually decreases and they come to rest after some time. What causes a change in their state of motion? Could some force be acting on them? Can you guess the direction in which the force must be acting in each case? The force responsible for changing the state of motion in all these examples is force of friction. Like I told, surface ಅಂದರೆ ನೆಲ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ನ ನಾವು ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಇಸ್ ದ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ in the surface of the ball and the ground that brings moving ball to rest. Similarly, friction between water and boards bring it to a stop once you stop rowing. The force of friction always acts on the moving object. The direction is always opposite to the direction of motion. Since the force of friction arises due to contact between surfaces, it is also called as an example for contact force. ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ಫ್ಲೋರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋ ಬಾಲ್, ನೆಲದ ಮೇಲೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋ ಬಾಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕೆ, ಸ್ಲೋ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕೆ, ನಾವು ನಡೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಓಕೆನಾ, ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಒಂದು ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಆ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಏನು? ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ಏನಂತಾರೆ? ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನೇನು ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ? ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಅದನ್ನು. ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್. If this is the force of the friction between the surface of the ball and ground that brings moving ball to rest. Similarly, friction between water and boat brings it to a stop once you stop rowing. The force of friction always acts on all moving objects and its direction is always opposite to the direction of motion. Since the force of friction arises due to contact between surfaces, it is also an example of a contact force. The force of friction always acts on all the moving objects and its direction is always opposite to the. Since the force of friction arises due to contact between surfaces, also an example of contact force. You may be wondering whether it is essential for the agent applying a force on an object is always in contact with it. Let us find out. Do you think that always the forces which are applied should be in contact? Next we will learn non-contact forces. Number 1, magnetic force. You can take a pair of magnets, place on the longer side of one of the magnets or 3 round shaped pencils on wooden rollers as shown in the figure. Now bring one end the magnet near the end of another magnet, place on the rollers. Make sure two magnets do not touch either. Observe what happens. The magnets move. So there are some forces. There are many forces which can act without the bodies coming in contact with each other. For example, a magnetic force. If you take some iron pin, if you just take magnet near that iron pins, that iron pin will start to move and try and attach to the magnet. We have learnt in class 6 that like poles of two magnets repel each other, unlike poles attract each other. Attraction or repulsion between objects can also be seen as another form of pull or push. We have to bring the magnets in contact for observing the force between them. A magnet can exert force on another magnet without being in contact with. The force exerted by a magnet is an example for non-contact force. Poles of two magnets repel each other and unlike pole attract each other. Attraction or repulsion between objects can also be some form of pull or push. You have to bring the magnets in contact for observing the force between them. A magnet can exert a force on one another magnet without being in contact with them. A force exerted by a magnet is an example for non-contact force. So magnetic force ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೇ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ದೂರದಿಂದನೇ ಎಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ನಾನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್. ಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕೇ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಬೇಕೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. Next, electrostatic force. A straw is said to have acquired electrostatic charge after it has been rubbed with sheet of paper. Such a straw is an example of charged body. The force exerted by the charged body in another charged or uncharged body is known as electrostatic force. The force exerted by a charged body, another charged or uncharged body is called. This force will come to play even when the bodies are not in contact. Electrostatic force is therefore another example for non-contact force. Electrostatic force is an example for non-contact force. We can charge a straw by rubbing it, hitting it. Been rubbed with a sheet of paper. The force exerted by a charged body and another charged or uncharged body is known as electrostatic force. This force comes into play even when the bodies are not in contact. The electrostatic force therefore is another example for non-contact force. Next, gravitational force. You know that coin or pen falls to the ground when it slips off the hand. Leaves and fruits are also fall to ground when they get detached from the plants. Have you ever wondered why is it so? When the coin is held in our hand, it is at rest. As soon as it begins to move downward. This is clearly a state of motion and the coin undergoes a change. Can this happen without a force acting on it? Which is that force? Objects or things fall towards or because it pulls them. The force by force of gravity pulls them. So the gravity makes the ball to fall down. The gravitational force makes the ball to fall down. This is called as force of gravity or just gravity. This is an attractive force. The force of gravity acts on all objects. The force of gravity acts on all of us all the time without ever being aware of it. Water begins to flow downward towards the ground as soon as we open a tap. Water in reverse flows downward due to the force of gravity. Gravitational force, because of its planets are moving. All objects which fall down, ಏನೇ ನಾವು ಮೇಲೆ ಎಸೆದ್ರು ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ? ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್. ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಬಾಡಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬಾಡಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಸ್ non-contact forces. Gravitational force, magnetic force, electrostatic force, ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ನಾನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸು. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಫೋರ್ಸು, ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎರಡು ಬಾಡಿನ ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡದೆ ಕೂಡ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ನ. ಅದು ನಾನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಯಿತು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರೋಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟೈಮು ಇದನ್ನು ಬಾಚಣಿಗೆನ ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾನ ಉಜ್ಜಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಪೇಪರ್ನ ಅಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಮುಟ್ಟದೇ ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಅದು ಪೇಪರ್ನ ಎಳ್ಕೊಳತ್ತದೆ. ಆ ಥರ ನಾನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸು. ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು, ಯಾವುದೇ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಸೆದ್ರೂ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ನಾನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸಸ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಲು. These are all examples for non-contact forces. These are all examples for non-contact forces. These are examples for non-contact forces. Next we will go for pressure. You have learnt in class 7th that strong winds during a storm or cyclone can be blown away, can even blow away even the rooftop. You have learned that winds and cyclones are caused by differences in air pressure. Is there any relation between pressure and force? Try to push a nail, a wooden plank by its head. Did you succeed? Try now to push the nail by pointed head. Could you use this time? Try cutting vegetables with a blunted knife and then with sharp knife. Which is easier? To get the feeling that the area over which the force is applied. For example, the pointed end of the nail plays a role in masking, making it easier. The force acting on a unit area of a surface is called pressure. The force acting on a unit area of surface is called as pressure. Pressure is equal to force by area. Pressure is equal to what, students? Force by area. Normally, if you apply force on a particular area, then we call it as pressure. Pressure is also kind of force by area. Note that the area is in denominator is above expression. So smaller the area, larger the pressure on a surface for the same point. The area of the pointed end of the nail is much smaller than the end. The same force therefore produces a pressure sufficient to push the pointed end of the wooden plank. Can you explain why shoulder bags are provided with broad straps and not thin straps, and why the tools mating for cutting and piercing always have? Do liquids and gases exert pressure? So we all know that if you take a pin and try to apply force, apply force. Force is pressure acting. Normally sharp items, sharp edges can apply more pressure. This is the reason why shoulder bags are provided with broad straps and not thin straps. Gases and liquids also apply pressure. Gases and liquids are also apply pressure